This is how you are going to cut the bias for the bias binding type of facing. So you can make use of a 45-degree triangle, and then you can measure the width of the bias. So this sample is 1.5 inches. We are now cutting the bias binding to be used. So we make sure that our bent handled shear is sharp enough while we cut the bias. So again, bias is cut in diagonal grain of the fabric so that it will stretch and follow the shape. And now we are going to attach it with the bodice as a sample for our bias binding. So we are going to attach the bias on the wrong side of the bodice. So we can make the stitch of 1/4 inch. Okay, we have to follow the seam line. Okay, while attaching the bias binding on the neckline part of the bodice. So don't forget to lock the stitch as you finish. After that, you have to notch the seam that you have made so that the shape of the neckline will follow. Again, notching is very important so that the bias binding will will follow the shape of the neckline to which you are attaching the bias binding with. So after the notch, you can already fold the bias, okay, going to the right side of the bodice. Then you can fold at least 1/4 so that you can have a finish of 1/2 inch bias binding. So we have to fold the 1/4. Make sure that your work is neat. So we fold the edge of the bias binding and sew along the edge of the folded bias binding. So we lock. Okay, lock the stitch. Make sure that the stitching doesn't pucker, so it doesn't have wrinkles while you are sewing, and that the folded edge of the bias binding is just along with the line of the stitch of the first stitch that you have made. So you have to make sure that it has no puckers. So you have to lock the end and cut the excess bias binding. So this is already our finished product of the bias binding as a type of facing. So it shows on the right and the wrong side the bias binding, so we make sure that our work is neat. So we have to trim the unnecessary threads. So So this is already the bias binding. Thank you for watching.